On today's You Asked, busting the myths about TV calibration and are TV brands trying to blind us with brightness? Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and this is You Asked, the show where I answer questions you asked in hopes that I can help you and others with similar tech questions. If you've got a question for me, please email it to youasked@digitaltrends.com, and we'll see if your question gets picked to be answered on the show. Let's start with a really interesting one today. Kevin Gallagher writes that he's looking into getting a Sony Bravia 9 from Value Electronics, which provides a QA, that's quality assurance, and calibration service, which he feels is kind of pricey. Kevin is concerned that a calibration could diminish or even ruin the top-of-the-line Sony picture quality that this TV is built to deliver. And he wonders if that's a fair worry or if he's just overthinking things. His primary concerns are that the calibration could dim the TV down or otherwise sap the TV of its magic, which he enjoys on the two other Sony TVs that he already owns. So first off, I just want to acknowledge that this is a fair concern. I can imagine being on the internet, researching TVs, and you see a lot of videos and forum posts, and on one side, you've got folks swearing by calibrations, while on the other side, you have folks talking about how calibrating a TV just sucks the life out of the picture, and maybe you even see folks proclaiming they wish they'd never spent the money on the calibration. Even if you understand what is best for one person may not be best for another, it's still hard to reconcile such strong feelings or polar opposite sides of a topic. So I'm gonna speak to that. But first, I want to address the QA portion of the service that, in this case, Value Electronics offers. And actually, I'm not sure if anybody else does this. But when a retailer sells you a brand new TV, it's expected that they're selling you a factory fresh, factory sealed television that has not been messed with by anyone. If it's been opened and in any way altered, and I mean something as minimal as taking the plastic off the remote or opening the supplied battery pack for the remote, I mean, the TV should be sold as an open box unit and come with some kind of discount, no matter how minor the opening was. But the problem with getting a factory fresh TV is that it's a little like playing the lottery. Though, let's be honest, it's a lottery in which the odds are way more in your favor than if you're trying to win the Powerball. There's a much better chance that the TV inside the box is gonna be in good shape and offer good performance than there is a chance that you're gonna win $1 million at 7-Eleven. Still, a lot can happen to a TV between the moment it's packed into its box at the factory and when it lands at your doorstep. There can be shipping damage, even with no obvious signs of trauma on the box. So having a professional check the quality and performance of a TV will at the very least ensure you're not gonna have a devastatingly disappointing moment when you unbox the TV at home, set it up, turn it on, only to find out part of the screen took a hit and it's all messed up. But this QA service offers even more value than that. See, the quality checks performed by a manufacturer at the factory only go so far, and their standards are often not quite as high as the standards by which Robert Zone's team at Value Electronics, and I hope anyone else who offers this service, abide. Their professionals can not only check to make sure you don't have any dead pixels, they can also check to make sure that the panel uniformity is good enough, that there's no excessive banding, things of that nature. In other words, they're taking the time to ensure that the TV that lands in your room is gonna be a thrill, not a disappointment. It's like insurance that you'll be happy with your purchase. It is not, however, a promise that you will get a perfect TV, because at the end of the day, retailers can't return units that end up performing within a manufacturer's specs. So you'll be assured not to get a dud TV, but you aren't promised a perfect TV. Now, I personally think that counts for a lot. So don't discount the QA service when considering whether the price being charged is worth paying. Now, as for the calibration matter, this worry that calibration may suck the life out of the picture, I need you to start by understanding that a good calibrator's chief goal is to make their customer happy. Now, if the calibrator's customer wanted reference grade accuracy, then the calibrator needs to make sure that the picture the TV puts out is dead on accurate. Now, accuracy is not some nebulous concept that's open to interpretation, okay? It's all measurable and adheres to several points with standards. For example, the white point of the TV should measure at D65. The grayscale should have the proper balance of red, green, and blue all across 20 points of brightness, at least. The colors should land at certain coordinates on a CIE color chart, and they should also be of a certain brightness depending on the instructions of a video signal. The average picture level of the TV, or APL, should be at a certain number for SDR. All of this is done in service of making the picture accurately represent what the content was made to look like. The idea is that a calibration will get a TV to mimic as closely as possible what the super fancy, expensive reference monitors used by professional creators get. Now, that is what a strict calibration for a professional client would involve. However, a strict calibration standard like that also assumes the TV is always going to be operating in a dark room, which is rarely the case for most people. It also assumes strict accuracy is the primary goal, which is not necessarily the end goal for most viewers. But look, it is also possible to just tell your calibrator, look, I do want an accurate white point. I do want accurate colors. I want accurate grayscale, but look, I don't want my TV to be super dim in SDR. Look, it's in a living room with a lot of windows. Make it look good here. I want it to be pretty bright. Or you may say, I really want color brightness to be juiced up a little bit. I want the colors to be accurate on the color chart, but I'm okay with them being brighter than they should be. I want the picture to really pop. Can you please make sure my TV does that for me? In that case, the calibrator can still make some valuable adjustments to yield accuracy, but they can also abandon the standard in a couple of spots in favor of your preferences. This way you get a nice blend of accuracy and preference. Now, the thing is, when you get a really high-end TV, often the out-of-box cinema, professional, or movie presets for SDR and HDR are really close to accuracy already. Sometimes Dolby Vision Bright is just a couple of tweaks away from being super accurate and doesn't need a ton of help because the factory did such a great job of making the TV accurate right out of the box. That's why in my reviews, I try to talk about how close the TV is to properly calibrated right out of the box. This is in an effort to help folks understand whether they may still want to pay for a calibration or if they'll probably be satisfied with what the TV can do without that professional service. With all of that said, here's the most important thing to remember. A calibration is not forever. You can undo it with the press of a button. Just restore the TV to its factory settings or just change the picture mode so you have an accurate mode and you have one that's a little more punchy. Good calibrator is going to do that for you, as a matter of fact. On a Sony TV, the professional preset can be calibrated to accuracy while the cinema preset can be something more punchy and exhilarating. It's not as if once your TV is calibrated, it's locked in and there's no going back. And also, I think a lot of calibrators would be willing to print out the settings they made so that if you ever needed to put them back in, you could. I think the most important takeaway here is that getting a TV calibrated doesn't strip you of options. If anything, it gives you more options. It helps you get what you want, not what someone else thinks you should want. Anyway, I really hope that helps. Okay, this next one is a little long, but it's just too good not to read the whole thing, so hang with me here. Jimster481 writes, this is the most wild thing I've ever seen. 4,000 nits? WTF will anyone do with that? Are you gonna try to watch movies in full sunlight outside? Because seriously, I have a 2020 Sony Master 8 OLED and it hits like 900 nits peak and it's way too bright in HDR mode. We don't even use full brightness in SDR, especially when watching at night. We have the sensor on to adjust brightness. My wife watches content on our Lenovo OLED tablet at like 300 nits most of the time in dark settings or 600 nits in bright settings. But 4,000, it just makes no sense. In a bright room, 1,000 is already overwhelming depending on how far you are from the screen. I typed this on a laptop that is a 440 nit OLED screen, and it's at 85% right now in a fully lit room with lights on and a massive window. I use dark mode because it's so bright on white backgrounds. What would anyone do with 2,000, let alone 4,000 or 6,000 nits, as I mentioned in the other 98-inch model? The end there, I think, is referring to the 98-inch TCL QM8. Anyway, I know I've addressed this kind of question many times over the 49 weeks that I've been doing this show, but there is no way everyone is gonna watch every video and catch the answer. So I think it's worth repeating from time to time, and this question just made me feel like it is time to answer it again. First, let me say I understand this misunderstanding about TV brightness. We see a peak brightness number like 500, 1000, or 2000 nits, and we correlate that to the brightness of a display that we have experience with, and we think it's an absolute madness that anyone would ever want or need anything brighter. I get that, but the problem is that premise is based on one very big misunderstanding. When we talk about brightness on a display, there are two chief, I guess we'll call them categories of brightness. There's average picture level, or APL for short, and then there's HDR highlight brightness. Average picture level describes what most people understand to be what makes a display bright. It's the average level of brightness given all the various different brightnesses of the scenes that we see on our displays. The average picture level of some shows tends to be high, while the average picture level of others may tend to be quite low. House of Dragons, for example, is a dark show with low APL. The Price is Right, on the other hand, is a very bright show. And you're absolutely right, Jimster. You do not need the average picture level of a show like The Price is Right to be up in the 2000 or even 1000 nit territory. In fact, most folks like SDR content, like game shows and sitcoms, to be right in the 300 nit territory, well under 1000. That's plenty bright for a bright show's APL. Now, when we talk about how exciting the brightness numbers on a TV are when they can hit 2000, 4000, or 6000 nits, we're not talking about the TV's capability of making The Price is Right so eye-searingly bright that you wouldn't want to watch it. I mean, can the TV do that with its brightness power? Yeah, it can make everyday viewing painful if you ask it to, but that's not what the brightness power is there for. That brightness power, its headroom, its horsepower in reserves to be used in very specific situations to enhance the viewing experience with realism and sparkle. What you want that brightness for is very tiny elements on the screen. We call them specular highlights. It's the glint of the sun off the corner of a chrome bumper on a car. And it may only take up like a tiny half-inch circle of diameter on your 65-inch screen. It's the sheen coming off of a piece of fruit. It's the intensity of the holiday lights on a tree in the background of a living room scene. Tiny little areas that, when made very bright, they don't hurt your eyes or blind you, they just make the image pop and add realism. That is what that high brightness power enables. Also, keep in mind that bright white light impacts us differently than a really bright shade of, say, green, for example. Different wavelengths of light at super high brightnesses aren't blinding, they're just exciting. So a 2000 nit white 2% window might blind you, but a 2000 nit green 2% window would just look cool. Wouldn't blind you at all. I hope that helps clear things up, and I hope you don't mind hearing that explanation again if you heard it already. It bears repeating. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this deeper dive into a couple of commonly confusing topics. Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe to support the channel if you appreciate this video. I'll see you on the next one, and until then, here's 2 other videos I think you might like.